Good evening, this is Mr. Wintermelon. So in the previous lesson, we have learned about the menstrual cycle. But what if fertilization was successful? Then the lady would not experience her menstrual cycle for at least 40 weeks. So in today's lesson, we are going to learn about fertilization as well as early embryonic development, and I throw in HIV as well because this is only a small part, so I do not want to make another additional video for HIV. Of course, it is not so closely related to fertilization and embryonic development, but bear in mind, HIV can be spread through pregnancy. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe fertilization, early development of the zygote, until implantation in the wall of uterus. So, after implantation, placenta will grow as well as umbilical cord. You will learn what is their function. Fetus will be stored in the amniotic sac, which contains the amniotic fluid. We are going to learn what are their function. And as mentioned, I threw in HIV into this video because it is just a simple 1 or 2 slide content. Doesn't make sense for me to make another video for this. First, let us learn what happens when fertilization occurs. When the sperm meets the egg, the sperm will release this enzyme called acrosome. So this enzyme will break down part of the egg membrane so that the nucleus of the sperm can enter and fuse with the nucleus of the egg. And this fertilized egg is known as a zygote. The rest of the sperm will not enter. So things like mitochondria will be left in the so-called leftover body of the sperm. So it will be interesting for you to learn that all the mitochondria that you have is actually from your mother. We actually get very little, if any, mitochondria from our father. So most, if not all, of our mitochondria is actually from our mother, because only the nucleus of the sperm will enter the egg. So as soon as the sperm enters the egg, the membrane will undergo some changes so that no other sperm can enter, as seen in this video. After fertilization, the zygote will divide by mitosis. So after a few divisions, the zygote will become a ball of cell known as the embryo. Inside the oviduct, there is this tiny little hair called cilia, which will swipe the embryo towards the uterus. And it will take around 5 days for the embryo to reach the uterus. After it reaches the uterus, it will hang around for 1 or 2 days before implantation. Implantation means that the embryo sinks and becomes embedded into the uterine lining. Now, you might ask, shouldn't the uterine lining be shedding by now? Now, if you think about it, if it's the last day of the fertile period, which is day 16, then 5 days and 2 days, it is around 7 days. The level of progesterone is still high, so uterine lining have not collapsed yet. But it will soon disintegrate if copper lutums do not receive sufficient hormones. So what happened? Once the embryo embeds itself into the uterine lining, the embryo itself will secrete hormone to prevent corpus luteum from breaking down. And corpus luteum will continue to secrete progesterone as well as estrogen until placenta takes over. So what is placenta? Placenta is something like a bloody pillow. So you should be glad that I am only showing you a cartoon instead of the actual placenta, which might get disgusting because it is a bloody pillow after all. So what is the function? Placenta will help to exchange food and metabolic waste between the maternal blood as well as the fetus blood. Oxygen, glucose, amino acid, as well as mineral salt will diffuse from the maternal blood to the fetus blood. Urea, as well as carbon dioxide, will diffuse out from the fetus blood. It also allows exchange of antibodies from the maternal blood to the fetus. Placenta also have the important job of producing progesterone. So this placenta will help to maintain the uterine lining until the mother is ready to give birth. Then the level of progesterone will drop and then the baby will be so-called ejected out from the womb. The umbilical cord connects the fetus to the placenta. Umbilical cord is basically a bundle of glorified blood vessels. There's two arteries which transport deoxygenated blood and waste from the fetus to the placenta, while the one umbilical vein will transport oxygenated blood and food to the fetus from the placenta. So the role of arteries and vein might be a bit swapped, but it makes sense because arteries will transport blood away from the fetus. So what does the fetus want to send away? Waste like carbon dioxide and urea. While vein will transport blood to the fetus. What does the fetus want? Oxygen and nutrients. Lastly, we have our amniotic sac and the fluid that is inside. So there is a layer or a membrane of amniotic sac surrounding the fetus. And inside the amniotic sac is the amniotic fluid. So you can imagine the fetus is actually bathing in this liquid. And it is very important because amniotic fluid cushions the fetus by acting as a shock absorber. So it can help to prevent injury. So imagine if there's some trauma that the mother might be experienced. Because the fetus is in liquid, there's some leeway for it to float around or bounce around a bit without getting serious injury. And because it's liquid, it's also easier for the fetus to move. So movement will promote muscle development. And it is not difficult to imagine if the fetus is just surrounded by muscle. How is the fetus supposed to move? Because muscles are solid, it is easier to move through liquid than solid. And of course, the fluid will provide lubrication during birth. Because when something is wet, there is reduced friction. Lastly, let us talk about HIV, which is the human immunodeficiency virus. HIV is a virus that causes the disease AIDS, which is acquired immune deficiency syndrome or AIDS. So AIDS is the disease, HIV is the virus that causes the disease. Something like influenza causes flu. One is the virus, one is the disease. Don't mix this up. While I don't think it's very important because most likely they wouldn't test you on this, but as a biology student, you shouldn't mix them up. So how does this virus kill you? The virus will destroy the body immune system and prevent the white blood cell from protecting us. And because the white blood cells are destroyed when other virus infect the person, the body cannot mount an immune response to the virus, so the patient will die from infection of other virus. So in many ways, HIV do not kill you directly. It only destroys the body immune system. You can still carry on living, but if you get attacked by other virus, your body do not have immune system to fight them off. Hence, you will die. Given how serious HIV is, we need to learn how they are transmitted and how we can prevent the transmission. So HIV is normally transmitted by bodily fluid, for example, semen, vaginal fluid, and blood. So it can be transmitted by, of course, you know, sexual intercourse, sharing of needle, when someone is looking to get tattoo, or when people abuse drug, they might share needle. And when the needle poke into your blood vessel, it will contain the blood that might contain the virus, and when someone share the needle, the virus will infect the other person. Blood transfusion, that means blood transfer. This is very rare in Singapore because blood are thoroughly screened before they are given to the recipient. And last but not least, pregnancy, which is why I thought, okay, I can kind of include HIV in this video. But why pregnancy? Because remember the placenta, there is exchange of substance. The virus can also diffuse out from the blood vessel and enter the bloodstream of the fetus, causing the baby to be born HIV positive. So this is dreadful. Therefore, we need to learn how to prevent the spread of HIV. What we can do is keep to one sex partner. Normally, before a couple get married, they might go for health checkup, and if they are all clear, that means it is safe for them to have sex with one another without the fear of transmitting the disease to each other. But if you are someone that is very promiscuous, you sleep around, the risk of you getting infected by someone is high, and you infecting other people is also high, because all of you just like to exchange fluid day and night. So I will link a video of this. If you are interested, you can go and take a look. In the video, you also learn that, hey, there's actually drugs to prevent HIV after intercourse. And speaking about intercourse, wearing of condom can reduce the risk of infection, but it doesn't prevent it totally. Do not abuse drugs so that you will not be sharing unclean needle. Do not share instruments that might cut the skin, for example, shaver or toothbrush, because gum might bleed easily, and those blood or bodily fluid might contain the virus. And if you are going for your ear piercing, your nose piercing, please go and find a legit, reliable operator for the piercing to be done, because their piercing instrument needs to be sterilized to kill off any virus on the surface, since those instruments are likely to pierce into your skin and go into your blood. So bear in mind, HIV, there's still no cure for it, and the best is to prevent it, since we cannot really treat it, at least for this moment. And this will be all for the chapter of reproduction in human.